So this is what your porn addiction is really about. Because it's not about sex, believe it or not. It's not about you wanting to see jiggly body parts on your phone. It's not about that. What it's really about is your inability to know how to handle discomfort and how to handle pain. And I know this because I've experienced it too. I was deep in a gooning addiction for a large part of my late teenage years and my early 20s. And it taught me a lot about myself. And now, in the position I am now, where I've completely abstained from any sexual content for 3 years now, I can really look back and see what it really was. It was about escaping, it was about running away. Because every time that life felt heavy, every time that I felt unseen, every time I felt uncomfortable or uncertain about my life or my future, that's where I went. It was soothing. It was to soothe my pain. It was to soothe my worries. Not really just to scratch an itch. And the craziest part is that I completely thought this was normal. Because let's be honest, everyone's doing it. You go on social media, you go in the comment section, and everyone is talking about it all the time. Everything is so sexual. But deep down, I knew, probably what you know, that it's eating you alive and it's not right. So when I first started watching it, I was around 13 or 14, and it was actually introduced to me in a very traditional manner by boys in my school on the bus. Yeah, I was literally on the bus home, and he said, "Oh, Pierce, have a look at this." Showed me the screen, and yeah, I was confused, interested, intrigued, and I spent time delving into all of those things when I got home. And I'll be honest, I told myself for a long time that it was harmless, that, it was just curiosity. But over time, it became this thing that I almost felt that I needed. And not like just for pleasure, like not just to feel, that feeling, but also just to kind of have a sense of control. And mainly for a sense of comfort when, let's be honest, like everything else in life kind of felt empty. Like I'm sure there's a very high correlation between like gooning addiction and guys that just kind of feel empty and apathetic about life. Because if life doesn't really have much meaning to it, then why not just be engulfed in pleasure? But for me, it wasn't really about women, it wasn't really about lust, it was really about avoiding pain and avoiding loneliness. I feel like we've all been there in that situation where it's late at night, you've kind of been having thoughts about, going onto the hub throughout the day, and you've been kind of trying to ignore it. And then when it gets late, you kind of just give up. You're like, fuck it, I might as well. And as soon as you do it, you realize, oh, I wasn't even horny. I was just lonely. I felt isolated, and I've used this as a way to cope with my isolation for so long that my brain literally thinks I need it. But every time I do it, I'm left with the same feeling. What the fuck am I doing? And I've had this moment so many times when I was younger. So many nights that I've kind of just had that post-nut clarity, like, whoa, what am I doing right now? This is disgusting. This is weird. And then before you know it, the next night you're back there again. But the truth is that when you grow up disconnected from love, from understanding, you start to chase connection in really unhealthy ways. And I think that's all that you're doing really. You're trying to feel something. You're trying to feel alive. You're trying to feel connected, even if that connection is clearly inauthentic and clearly detrimental to you. But when you keep escaping discomfort, you never allow yourself to grow through it. And I had to really start facing the real question that I've been avoiding for so long, which is, what am I trying not to feel right now? And I think that one question that I asked myself really changed my life. I just had to realize, okay, what am I trying to avoid when I go on these sites? What am I trying to avoid when I, watch these videos? And that's when things changed for me. That's when I stopped running away from my pain and I started to try to understand it. And I don't want to sound cheesy or corny, but I'll be honest, man, life is so much better when your brain isn't filled with sexual thoughts, when your brain isn't filled with lust. Life just feels so much better. I'm able to be so much more grateful for every day. I'm able to really see the beauty in the everyday things, like just nature, human interaction, and not sexualizing it. I think that's something that we've been robbed as young men. We've been over-sexualized by the society that, let's be honest, they prey on young minds. They know that young male minds especially are very susceptible to sexual images and sexual messaging. And let's be honest, they don't care how it affects you. They care about their bottom line. They care about keeping your attention. They care about keeping you in a box. But the truth is, a lot of the time, this box becomes our new home. This box becomes our safe place. This box becomes the place that we go to when we don't know where else to go. So if you're out there right now listening to this and you feel like you are struggling with this addiction, you feel like it's eating you alive, I want you to know there's hope. I want you to know there is a version of you that doesn't have to deal with this anymore. There's a version of you that is no longer fighting this losing battle. And simply for me, what really helped me was to understand that you can't bargain with lust. You can't try and negotiate with it, because there's no amount of porn or, meaningless sex with women that is going to fill that void that is placed in your heart by your need to chase some sort of purpose, to chase some sort of meaning, to do something that you care about. Because let's be honest, man, if you're living a life where you're actually doing things that make you happy, where you have connections and relationships with people, where, let's say, you're even in like a loving long-term relationship, porn does not play a part in that. It doesn't. And I want you to know that there is a version of you, as I said, that doesn't need to use porn because their life is good enough. And as soon as you're able to ask yourself the hard questions and really discipline yourself and allow yourself to remove the need to be sexually stimulated by strangers online, everything will change for you in this life, bro. Because most men don't have a porn problem, they have a pain problem. And when you start healing that pain, the need to escape starts fading too. Peace.